Hey everyone, so it's the end of March already, and we're getting ready for another camping season. And one of the things I'm going to do today is I'm going to season my cast iron pans. Now, I'm not one to take care of my cast iron pans. They get used in camping, so they get thrown in the back of my trunk. They get left out on the picnic table for a couple hours. And my pans get used. A lot of people have cast iron pans just for decoration. So this is a cast iron pan that I picked up at a thrift store. As you can see, it has a little bit of rust on it. That's from 2 seasons of camping. I love cast iron because you can just throw it in the fire. So I'm going to go ahead and season this. This is not in the condition where I would say would need a good cleaning. Now that blackness is just carbonization. That's actually good for you. That's good iron. But it doesn't need to be cleaned at all. The rust on here is really not that bad. It just needs a good coating of oil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use coconut oil to actually season and get the blackness back on my pan. So what I'm doing is I'm heating up my pan on a very low temperature. I've got it on number 4. And then I'm just going to coat this, let the oil sink in, and then I'm going to go ahead and dry it out. All right, so my pan's been heating up for a little bit. It's warm to the touch. I don't want this super hot because I don't want the oil splatting around, and I definitely don't want to create a high smoke point because that will set off my fire detectors and it'll actually stick. So I'm just going to take a little bit of coconut oil. This happens to be just Butcher Boy organic refined. Just something I picked up at the job lot. Now I'm not going to use much because, like I said, I'm not frying anything here. So I'm just going to go ahead, drop a little bit of coconut oil in. Let that start melting in there. Now, as you can see, it's not sizzling, it's not cracking, it's not smattering. Just going to go ahead and move that around a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a regular old paintbrush. This is actually a brand new one. I haven't used this paintbrush before. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint up the sides. Like I said, I'm just using very little. You don't want too much oil in here. We're not frying, we're not baking, we're not cooking, we're just seasoning. Cast iron will never be totally non-stick like your Teflon pans, but the more you cook with it, the more you get the carbonization, the better it's going to be. And I'm going to go ahead and do up my handle as well. You don't want a thick coat because that's what's going to get sticky. You just want enough to coat it. You're not going to let this sit long because cast iron absorbs oil quickly. And then once it starts pooling like this, it's really absorbed everything that it's going to absorb. So, and as you can see, I'm getting the stove a little bit dirty. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some paper towel, wipe off all the excess. And at this point I can go ahead and turn my pan off. So wipe up the inside. And as you can see, that black is actually nothing wrong with it. The black is actually good for you. And as you can see, the inside of my pan is getting nice and black how I want it. This here might take 2 or 3 seasonings or coatings. So now that I got all that excess wiped off, I'm going to go ahead and brush some more on, just a little bit. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to cover up as much of that where it rusted as possible from all the camping trips. And really I should do this every time I cook with it. But last couple camping trips it was raining. So I didn't actually get a chance to. Now for cast iron pan that was actually made in China, this is actually good condition. You see that bump right there? That's not rust or pitting or anything like that. That's where I last cooked and not everything came out of it. Truthfully, when it comes to cast iron, I don't look for the vintage stuff. And the reason is I use mine for camping. I'm not a collector. I actually use my stuff. So it's going to get pretty well beat up. Even your non-vintage stuff, like this one's made in China. I got some other thrift store pieces that I picked up. Paid very little for them. They actually have no markings on it. Don't know how old they are, or even if they are old. They're still going to last hundreds of years if you take care of them. And I prefer the thicker cast iron over the thinner ones. They don't distribute heat evenly when you're cooking, but once they do get warm, they hold the heat nice. I'm gonna take a paper towel. I'm gonna hit this again. And I'm gonna go ahead, take a rag, and actually polish this up. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this a few more times until I get the nice blackness that I want. Okay, so I went ahead and done this process about 3 or 4 times. I don't know if you can see the difference inside of there. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than what it was. The coating, the carbon coating that you want will build up over time from using it, but this pan right here is pretty much almost completely restored. Let me take you over to the window. I can show you some better light. So I don't know if you can see in that or not, but the inside of this pan is almost pretty much restored. Still just got some marks there where there was a little bit of rusting, but it's actually looking a lot better, and over time with cooking, the carbon will be all covered up on that. You can see I got the nice black restored on the outside, starting to look shiny. The more and more I use this pan and the more and more I polish it up, the better the black is going to get. So I'm going to set this down, let it completely cool down. So the one thing I do want to mention when you're doing your pans is if you do use a paintbrush to spread your oil around, make sure you get the good vintage style paintbrushes. Don't use the cheap one from the dollar store, and I'll show you why. I didn't do this in my pan. This was actually used for another project, but this is what happens with the cheap dollar store paintbrushes. They're made primarily of plastic and they're just going to melt. You do not want that happening on your cast iron pans. So like I said, this one was from another project. This wasn't from using on the pans. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do my next pan. These are little egg pans. Some of them call them salesman samples. They're a lot lighter. They're made for maybe 1 egg or making like an egg McMuffin that you would get at McDonald's. These right here, these little pans are not bad. They're just probably gonna require 1 or 2 coats to put another season on it. So I'm gonna go ahead, do those up. And then I got these other ones right here that are cast iron. They're actually gold in color. They don't have any marks on the back, but when I bought these, I was assured that they were not brass, because you do not want brass pans. Brass is something that was used before cast iron, and brass can actually be a little bit toxic to cook with. I've actually seen silver cast iron pans, and that has to do with the coating that they put on it. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna do up these 2 small ones next. So I'll go ahead and show you all the pans once I get through with them and what they look like afterwards. Now moving on to this pan here. As you can see, I'm heating up this pan. This one right here has some issues with it. The original seasoning, whoever owned this before, they didn't do a good job, so it's a little bit sticky. As you can see, you got some white from the other oil that's starting to cook off of it. This one was not taken care of as well. Interesting thing, like I said, about cast iron, or how they're not a good conducer of heat. They don't heat evenly. but they do hold the heat for a long time. The sides are getting nice and hot, but the handle on this one is actually still ice cold. So like I said, I'm not sure what type of cast iron this is, but there's no markings on it, but it's heavy like cast iron, so I know it's not brass. So I'm going to let this heat up a little bit more. Then I'm going to go ahead, go through the process of seasoning this one as well. Hey everyone, so I'm in the pantry area now where the sink is, and this might be a little bit of a lesson learned when it comes to picking up cast iron at thrift stores. So the first ones that I did that were actually the black cast iron, those are coming out nice. Those are good pans, even though they don't have markings on them, and one of them says made in China. Those are coming out really, really good, and those are going to be some good pieces to use. Unfortunately, with these gold ones, the first one I did was the little square egg pan. That one was not bad. Unfortunately, though, I've got these two that are in the sink right now. I started heating up this bigger one. Now, this one I'm a little bit worried about as to what the previous owners might have did with this, because you can see the inside is black. Turn it over. It's a little heavy. It's a little heavy trying to do this one-handed. And you can see the backside has some rusting. So this tells me this is cast iron. Or at least I think it is. You know, the finish on this one was extremely sticky. Same thing with this one. This one's badly seasoned, extremely sticky. And you notice that spot on the back, which is black also. Here's the thing that's got me a little bit worried about these pans and why this might be a lesson learned. I'm assuming that these are cast iron. Okay, I don't know why my GoPro wants to stop recording, but like I said, this might be a lesson learned. I'm assuming that these two are cast iron, but here's the thing. When I started heating up this bigger one right here to season it, after a few minutes, I started getting like a real strange smell and odor that was not from like regular cast iron at all. It smelled kind of like a toxic chemical burning plastic. So the thing I'm a little worried about with this one is it may be real cast iron by the looks of the black on the inside. And also this one here, which is extremely sticky and not done well by the black on the back. I don't know what the previous owner did to this. I don't know what type of coating they put on this. But like I said, it started smelling like a real bad plastic chemical odor. It started smelling like if you leave a Teflon pan on the burner too long and the Teflon starts burning off. I'm hoping that they did not try to coat these with some sort of Teflon. And I'm hoping that they did not get the bright idea of actually spray painting these. So what I got is, I'm going to try to clean these a bit. I've got some regular cleaning vinegar. Also in this bottle, excuse the label, and the green bottle up there, I've got a half and half vinegar water solution that we actually use for cleaning around the house. And I got a steel wool brush. I'm going to go ahead and try cleaning these pans with a steel wool brush and see maybe if some of this coating comes off and what's under it. Because as you can see, going like this with my finger, some of it is coming off. I'm hoping they did not spray, the previous owners of these did not spray this with some type of Teflon or use a spray paint on it. Because if they did and I cannot get this clean, these pans are now junk. They're going to have to be thrown out and not cooked with. So I'm going to give this a shot. That's a shame. It really is a shame. But once I started smelling that smell that was coming off it, I knew something with these pans were not right. Okay, so this will also be kind of a good lesson about restoring pans that have a little bit of rust on them, because it's going to go through the same process as what I'm going to do to see exactly what this coating is on this pan. So I got my mixture of vinegar and water solution. I'm just going to go ahead, spray this down, and I'm going to do the inside first, because that's the surface that you actually eat on. And it's also the surface that seems to have some of the coating that's come off of it, and it's actually black. And I'm just going to take a steel brush. Usually you should use a rubber one or some type of silicone one, but I'm going to use steel because I really want to see exactly what is going on with this pan. It is taking off some of the coating. Some of it is just black from cooking, and it also looks like it's taking off some of that gold. Not sure exactly what that is all about. I'm hoping somebody did not do something stupid like put some sort of coating on here or try to spray paint a cast iron pan. So what I'm going to do is, since the inside is actually hard to work with this big brush right now, for the sakes of curiosity, I'm going to work on this back side, which is bigger. And for such an old beat up pan, it's also kind of interesting that this water is beating up. I'm hoping somebody did not get the bright idea of spray painting a cast iron pan. Alrighty, well, I don't know how well this lighting is going to catch this, but as you can see, somebody did put some type of coating on this. Good news is it does come off. So I'm going to go ahead, work with these pans. I've got nothing to lose. Like I said, they were cheap thrift store finds. Just disappointed me that somebody would do this to cast iron. They are nice and smooth. They're not pitted, but I can tell that it does have some sort of coating on it, whether it's bad seasoning. Now that I'm looking at this and the way it's peeling, I don't think it's spray paint. I just don't know what they put on here. So I'm going to go ahead, work with this a little bit, get all this coating off of it, and then we'll try seasoning it again. But it's going to be a process. I'm going to have to do this to all three pans because, like I said, after that smell, I no longer trust what the coating is on this. Okay, well, I took you outside where the lighting is better and I can be completely messy, because this is going to be a messy process. I'm going to record this because this is actually how you want to restore cast iron that's got rusty. I'm going through the same process that I'm doing to take whatever finish is on these pans. All right, so show you what's going on here. I started working with this. I don't know what the coating is that's on this. I mean, now that I put the vinegar down, just rubbing it with my finger, it's coming off. And don't worry about this right here that looks like steel, because once you take the black carbonization off your regular cast iron pans, it will look shiny and steel like this. That's why you got to put the carbonization back on, because otherwise within a couple hours this will rust. So, but good news is whatever is on this is actually easily coming off. Bad news is I don't know what it is and whether or not I'm going to be able to save these pans. Like I said, I'm just hitting this with a 50-50 solution of vinegar and water. Also got some vinegar water in my bucket if I need it, but this coating is just coming right off. So this tells me that this golden coating does not belong here. I don't know what they did or why, but we need to remove all this. And you can see that's all just like flaking and mineralizing. So now if I rub this off, You can see that I'm getting that down to the bare metal. That coating should not be on this pan. Alrighty, well, I don't know what that nasty, nasty coating was that was on these pans. But steel brush and steel wool, it actually came off. You can see by the color underneath that I'm right down to the metal, and it's starting to get a little bit that what's called flash rusting from being wet. So I'm gonna have to put these in the oven to dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other two pans, get them down to the bare metal as well. And this one right here is just nasty with stickiness. This is the one that was the most sticky. I don't know what's on these pans. It took a little bit of elbow grease, some vinegar water mixture, steel brush, wire brush, and some steel wool. But I did get all that yellow residue off, so it's completely taken off down to the bare metal, and you can see the rust. This is what happens when you leave cast iron wet for even a minute. It flash rusts like that, but I'm not worried about that because I'm going to go ahead and get this bacon in the oven as soon as I rinse all the residue from the stuff I used off of it. Got everything taken off. This one here was a little bit harder because of all these grooves. This is a searing pan, so you get those meat marks, but that's down to the metal. And I even brought the square egg one down to the metal as well. So I'm going to go upstairs, get these all rinsed off. I'm going to start them baking in the oven at about 400 degrees. And then I'm going to let them cool down. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my burners to season them. But what I want to do is I want to get these completely, once I get them rinsed off, I want to get them completely dried. And then I want them cooled off to actually season. So we'll be right back with you. Alrighty, so I just had these baking in the oven at 500 degrees to totally dry them off. So when I came upstairs, I washed them off, got all the residue off of it, baked them at 500 degrees while I was eating, turned it off, let it cool down a bit so I can go ahead and take it out of the oven. So I'm gonna grab the first, whoa, smoky, smoky. I got the windows open, so let's hope the fire alarms don't go off. Smoky. So I knew that was going to happen a little bit. Let's take the first one out. Let's start with this little baby big one. And you can see how black, just from the carbonization in the oven. That's what cast iron is supposed to look like. I'm not sure what that gold stuff was. So while it's still hot, I'm going to go ahead, apply the coconut oil, get it seasoning, and then I'll show you after I season that one. Alright, so that's the first one. I just went ahead and put one coat for now. Nice and black, how cast iron is supposed to be. I'm going to pull the second one out. Still a little smoky in here, but let's do this searing pan. This one here, a little bit black, just from the carbonization of being in the oven. Go ahead and apply some coconut oil to that while it's still nice and hot. Now the oils you want to use is actually lard, grapeseed oil, or coconut oil. You don't want to use vegetable oil like your canolas, because that will actually cause it to get sticky. Also, you can use flaxseed oil. Flaxseed oil is supposed to be good, but flaxseed oil can be very expensive. Flaxseed oil is a food grade linseed oil. So go ahead, let that melt in there. Still got to use my pot holder because it's very hot. Alrighty, well the pans have cooled down, so let's take a look at our finished cast iron. Let's go ahead and start in this corner. So this was my last year's camp pan, which had a little bit of surface rust on it. Applied 4 coats of coconut oil. No rust at all. Came out really nice. These two smaller pieces, they were good to begin with. They just need another coat of the oil. So those look really good. Here's the other small one. Looks really, really good. Now, you remember the gold ones, which I had questioned? This one's still a little warm. This is the egg one. The square egg one. I took all that gold off, took it right down to the metal, applied oil coating to it. So this will blacken up over time. This is what cast iron should really look like before it has the seasoning. I have no idea what that gold stuff was that smelled pretty toxic. This is that one's still a little warm. This is the other one. This is the one that I said started smelling really toxic. As you can see, I stripped it all down. It's all nice and smooth. It's starting to get that patina from the carbonization. Got a couple coats of oil on it. We need to get cooking on these pans so that we get more carbonization and more oil soaked into there. This is that searing pan, which was also kind of that golden color. This is what cast iron is supposed to look like. So this will get nice and black like those as we cook on them, as we sear them down. And so we're gonna let these cool off a little bit more. Wipe off more of the excess oil, and then we'll be all set. So I hope you enjoyed the video about how to season your cast iron pans, how to actually restore them from what was questionable thrift store finds. I weren't even sure they were even cast iron at first, especially when it gave off that toxic smell. But now that I got them stripped and seasoned, and they're starting to look like cast iron. So we'll go ahead and see you in the next video. Please like, subscribe. Until then, this is Scott Hervey Outdoors.